Hello friends, welcome to Bhavyam Classes. So I am your polity teacher, basically Indian polity, and I will be covering your Indian polity. So first we need to look what we are going to learn in polity, Indian polity. What are the important topics that are going to come or that are important for your prelims point of view. So under Indian polity, we are going to learn about obviously the constitution, since constitution is a larger section in Indian polity, but you should know that only reading constitution you will not cover Indian polity. Along with Indian constitution, we also need to cover various terminologies like secularism, etc., and various important Supreme Court judgments. So, Constitution, Supreme Court judgments, various institutions like constitutional and non constitutional bodies, and legislature, executive, and judiciary, when we add all of them, that makes our Indian polity. So, we are going to learn about the constitution first and foremost. Then we'll look how our constitution was framed, what was the process, and who were the participants in the framing of our constitution. Then we'll look what are the three main organs of Indian state or even government. Will look legislature, executive, and judiciary. Apart from that, we'll also cover the constitutional and non-constitutional body. Under constitutional bodies, we'll cover the body that has been created by the constitution, and under non-constitutional bodies, we'll cover the executive bodies and statutory bodies. Apart from that, we'll also look the political system, that what is the political system, what are the ideas, political idea that we have adopted, and what is our political system. Then we'll, last but not the least, we'll also cover the various terminology like secularism, republic, etc., equality, fraternity. All these terminologies will be covered in class. And lastly, various Supreme Court will cover various Supreme Court judgments along with the, when we read various article like Article 21, like Article 20, like Article 19. When we look various articles, then there we will study about various important Supreme Court judgments. Since there's a lot of judgments of Supreme Court, we can't read all the judgments. So the judgment that are important from the particular article, or that has been given by the judgment that has been delivered by Supreme Court for a particular article, we'll look only that. So let us start by asking the basic question, that what is the meaning of constitution. So let us start. So first, by before starting the meaning of constitution, we need to look what we are going to cover in this lecture. So first we will look what is constitution, that means what is the meaning of the constitution. We will look what is the difference between written and unwritten constitution. We'll also look why do we need a constitution, why do a country need a constitution, what are the importance of constitution. Then we'll look what are the features of an effective constitution. Since we all know every country have its constitution, but not all the constitution are an effective constitution. So what makes a constitution an effective constitution. Then lastly we look what is the difference between constitutionality, constitutionalism, and constitutional morality. Since you must have heard about all these terms, but sometimes they are being used interchangeably, but they are slightly different from each other. Like constitutionality, constitutionalism, and constitutional morality, they all are different from each other. So let us start by asking what is the meaning of constitution. So if you go by the literal meaning of the constitution, then we'll find that constitution is, it is a set of fundamental principles according to which a state is governed. So it is a fundamental principle, it is a guiding principle. We can say it is a guiding principle that guide us, a state, a government, a country to run how a country should be run, how a government should be formed, what are the provisions that what are the ideas, what are the provisions a government should follow while ruling, while governing its citizens. So this is the basic idea of constitution, that it is a fundamental principle. Apart from that, we we also need to look what are the other dimension of the constitution. So when if we look, before going to other dimension, you must understand what is the difference between state and the government, since a lot of students government use state and government interchangeably, so there is a slightly different, they are slightly different from each other. Like, so state is a, it is a political, state is a political institution that represents a sovereign people who occupy definite territory. So that's how state is different from government. While government, it's, we can say the executive part of the of a state is a government in other term, but precisely we can say the administration and enforcing law is the main task of a government. So government is responsible for administering and enforcing laws, while state, it is a political institution. It has the ideas of sovereignty, it has the ideas of definite territory. Like India, we can say India is state, India will always be there, but government, India will always be there, but government will change after election. So that is the basic difference between state and the government. Apart from that, constitution is a law of the land. That means it is a, constitution is supreme, constitution is above all of the thing, constitution is everything, we can say in other terms. But you know, you also need to understand that all these things, all these qualities we are talking about in the context of Indian constitution. Like if we talk about the British constitution, their constitution is not supreme, there we saw the parliament is supreme. So it is a law of the land, constitution is supreme law. And constitution, when it was formed, like our constitutional assembly framed our constitution, so the constitution reflects the faith and aspiration of the people. Since constitution are framed, our constitution were framed by the people who were part of national movement, and the people and the members of the constituent assembly, they were elected and even some cases nominated by the people. The people were directly or indirectly part of our constitution in the framing of our constitution. So that's how it reflects the faith and aspiration of the people. So constitution also describes the relationship between people and the state and the government. How does constitution describe the relation between people and the state? Like by giving citizenship, by protecting our fundamental right, by giving state directive principle of state policies, like giving state the direction how you should work for the welfare of the people. So that's how constitution describe the relationship between people and the state. By state we mean the citizenship, like we are all Indians, so we are the citizen of India. So that's how it reflect the state relationship between state. And how does it reflect describe the relationship between government? By protecting us, by protecting our fundamental right. Like government can't violate our fundamental right, although there are some exceptions, but the basic point is that government can't violate our fundamental right. That's how constitution describes a relationship between people and the state. So now now we will look what is the difference between a written and unwritten constitution. So we all know India has a written constitution. Like we have written constitution means that we have a single document. We have a constitution that was framed by our ancestors, by the freedom fighters in 1946, between 1946 to 1950. So Our constitution, it is arranged in a single document, not just arranged logically, arranged logically and rationally. So it does not mean that we have a single document and it has been written randomly. We have certain kind of arrangement, like first we have citizenship, first we have citizenship, then when citizenship has been defined, then we have been given fundamental rights. When fundamental rights has been given to us, then there are certain directive to the directives to the state, that how you should approach to the people. Then we have the union, then we have the states. So that's how our constitution has been logically arranged. They are not just written randomly, they are logically arranged in a sequence manner. So that's the whole idea about the arrangement. Apart from that, the written constitution will always be enacted. That means they will come into force on a certain date. Like our constitution came into force in on 26 January 1950. So the written constitution, as I've already talk about that, written constitution is supreme. That means everything is below supreme constitution. Constitution is supreme. Executive or legislature, either it's executive or legislature or judiciary, they can't supersede the constitution. They have to follow the tenets or the principles of the constitution. They can't go beyond the constitution. Apart from that, the written constitutions are also, they might be flexible or the rigid. What is the meaning of the flexibility? So flexibility means adopting the situations, adopting the changes that are coming in our society. That is the meaning of flexible. So our constitution is flexible. That means the our constitution can adopt certain changes that has been coming on in our society. Like if we talk about through examples, like Supreme Court abrogated article 377, sorry, not article, section 377, that talked about although it has been abrogated, but earlier it talked about that homosexuality is an offense, but now it has been removed from the laws. Now it has been decriminalized. So that's how our constitution is flexible. On the other hand, on the say at the same time, our constitution is also rigid. That means rigidity is also important, because we have to, like, values, norms, some values and norms should continue. They should not be changed, like equality, like fraternity, like justice. They all should, like equal opportunity, they all should go in hand. Like, so that's how our constitution is rigid. That means it can't be changed. That means it is there since independence, since the formation of our constitution, since the framing of our constitution. So that's how our constitution is flexible and rigid at the same time. So all these features we have talked about that belongs to India, but also USA is also a written constitution. We can also all see all these points under USA's constitution. So that is that was the meaning of written constitution. Now we need to look what is the meaning of unwritten constitution. So first we need to talk about an example of unwritten constitution. So British constitution is an example of unwritten constitution, because there is not a single document. Lot of conventions are there, lot of parliamentary laws are there. So all these convention, norms, values, they are part of their constitution. They have not been compiled in a single document. And unwritten constitution, they evolve over the period of time. They are not enacted. Like Indian constitution came into force on 26 January 1950, but British, we don't know a particular date of a British constitution since they are evolving. A lot of things are included over the period of time. Apart from that, the parliament is supreme. That means parliament is supreme. Constitution is not supreme. Parliament will define what is constitution. Constitution will not define what parliament should do. So that is the whole idea about unwritten constitution, and they are always flexible since anytime anytime they could be changed, they could be changed anytime. Anything could be involved or excluded from the constitutions. So that's how unwritten constitution works. Now we need to look what or why do we need a constitution? Why a country should have the constitution? What is the whole idea about having the constitution? So first and foremost, and along with it, what are the functions of a constitution? Why do we need constitution and what are the functions of a constitution? So because constitution defines the nature of political system of a country, like whether a country should be a monarchy or democracy or authoritarian. What are the ideas a country should follow? What is the political system that is there in the country? So like if we talk about through the example of Indian Constitution, so we adopted the political ideology of or political system of democracy. So Indian Constitution clearly writes in if you look at the preamble of our constitution, it clearly writes that India should be a democratic republic. India is a democratic republic. So that's how our constitution defines what political system we should follow. If we talk about China, China is also constitution, although it follows the ideas of authoritarianism like dictatorship. So that's how the constitution defines the nature of a country's political system. It also defines constitution also defines the fundamental nature of society. That means how a society should go. What are the basic principle, basic values that a society should follow, like the ideas of equality, justice. So equality, justice, fraternity. So all these ideas should be followed by the people of a country. People of a country, that's how it guides the society. That's how it defines the fundamental nature of the society. So what is the meaning of fundamental nature of society? That it lays down ideals that define the kind of country that people wants to live in. It defines the basic ideas that how a country should be, or what are the aspiration of the people, or what kind of country that people want to live in. So that's the whole idea about the society. Now what are the other functions and of the constitution? So it provides a set of basic rules that allows for a minimal coordination. This term is important, minimal coordination amongst the member of a society. What is the meaning of minimal coordination? That means the meaning of minimal coordination is that there should be a minimum, we can say something, that something should be there that below that we can't go. And minimal coordination also means that people, all the section of the society, all the people of the country, they should come together, they should follow a certain principles, they should follow certain tenets. That is the meaning of minimal coordination. It So constitution provides a set of basic rules that allows for a minimal coordination amongst the members of a society. So it generates a degree of trust. So what does that minimal coordination do? It generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. If people are, since we all know India is a diverse country, India is a diverse country by language, by religion, by region, by class, by caste, gender, etc. So India is a diverse country. So in a diverse country like India, we need a minimal coordination that every section of society should come together, should follow, or should have a basic. We can say that they should have a basic. They should have a basic coordination. Said that they should coordinate on certain issues, that these are the issues that will be that we will coordinate. However we have a diversity of language, religion, region, class, caste, gender, etc. So now we also moving on to the next point. So the constitution also specifies who has the power to make decisions in a society. That means who should rule, who should rule, or we can say who should have the power to make laws, who should have power to make laws, who can take decisions for the Indian society. So has been given parliament has been given power to make laws. So the constitution, basically every constitution of the world, they defines who has the power to make decisions in a society, who has power to make the laws. So if we talk about Indian society, so Indian society, in Indian political system, parliament has been given the power to make laws. So it also decides how the government will be constituted, like how governments will be formed. Like we all know, after every 5 year, after every 5 year, elections are conducted in our country, and when the elections are conducted, whoever got whoever gets whoever gets 50% plus one vote forms the government. So constitution, basically my point is that the constitution decides how the government will be constituted. Like in our constitution, constitution had clearly defined that who should be a part of government and how a government will be formed. It says that every 5 year the government will change, the new government will come into power. So that was the whole idea about how a government should be formed and who makes decision for us in India, and even in other parts of the world. The constitution, only constitution gives power to them, that how a government should be formed. Now moving on to the next topic, next point, that constitution also sets some limits on what government can impose on its citizens. That means it follows the ideas of limited government. So government is not limitless. It has some boundaries. Some boundaries has been set up by our constitution. That means if we talk about through examples, fundamental rights. So government can't violate our fundamental rights. There are some restrictions on the government, that it cannot cross the line, or it cannot go beyond that, go beyond certain point. So through fundamental right we can see that if we talk about Article 19. So Article 19 talks about the freedom of expression. So at certain, so government can't violate our fundamental right, they cannot snatch our fundamental right of freedom to expression. But there are some certain exceptions, in certain conditions they could be taken away. So we will talk about when we do Article 19. But for the sake of this point, you just need to understand that government is not limitless. There are some restrictions that has been put by our constitution. So these limits that has been put by our constitution on the government, so and and even on the state. So these limits are not fundamental are fundamental. These limits are fundamental in the sense that government may never trespass them. So government can't trespass them in, although there are certain conditions when they can trespass them, but we'll talk about later when we'll do article 19 or when we'll do various articles. So now moving on to the next point. So constitution also enables the government to fulfill the aspiration of the society and creates condition for a just society. So we all know that our constitution was framed after freedom struggle, and we all know that various section of society participated in framing of our constitution. So and the people were the members of constituent assembly were directly or indirectly elected by the people of elected by the people. So that's how, since they were directly or indirectly elected by the people, so that shows what people wants. What do people want? What are people willing to include in our constitution? So constitution always fulfills try to fulfills the aspiration of a society. Like we said that we will not follow the ideas of untouchability. Like untouchability should not be there. Like we said that the titles should be abolished. It shows that if a title has been abolished, that you can't say that I am a raja of somewhere or that I'm a prince of somewhere. So title, abolition of title, abolition of untouchability, this all these articles shows the aspiration of the society. Like article 14, it says that there should be a equality, equal opportunity, etc. So equality in the society. Article 14 talks about equality. So that shows the aspiration of the society. So constitution always shows the aspiration of a society, and it wants to create a just society. Just means that there should be a natural justice should be there. Then you should ask, what is the meaning of natural justice? That right to be heard. That means every person has the right to be heard. That means before giving them punishment, you should hear them. What you should hear their side. So that is the meaning of natural justice. So we all, during the framing of our constitution, we all had the aspiration of a society that is an equal society. That in a society there is not untouchability. In a society that is just a society that do not follow the ideas of monarchy, like having the title of rajas, etc. So that's how the constitution enables the aspirations of society and create a condition of a just society. Then, last but not the least, it gives a fundamental identity of a people, like national identity. If you go and look at the preamble says, "We the people of India." So it clearly gives us a sense that we all are Indian. So it gives a identity to us by giving us citizenship, by giving us citizenship. It gives us a national identity. So constitution gives us a fundamental it gives us a fundamental identity, like we are Indian. So Indianness has been given by our constitution to us. Now we need to look what are the features of an effective constitution. Like India is considered as one of the effective constitutions of the world. Like USA, India, they all are considered as an effective constitution, even South Africa. So what makes a constitution effective? So it should have the broad consensus. That means every section of society should have say. There should be a belongingness. That means there should be something for every section of the society in a constitution. That means every section of society, like either they are poor, either they are or they are rich, they belong to certain religion, or they are of any gender. So there should be a broad consensus between the every section of society. Like our constitution, Indian constitution, came into force after freedom struggle, and every section of society participated in making of our constitution. Either they were Muslim, Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, tribals, Dalits, women, all every section of society participated in our making of our constitution. That makes a constitution successful, or we can say effective. So constitution like even South Africa and American constitution were also made after movement. We all know America got independence in 1776, and after that people constituted their constitution or framed their constitution. So even South African constitution was also framed after a popular national movement. So that's how a constitution that makes a broad consensus makes a constitution effective. effective so an effective constitution should also have a balanced institutional design. Like there should be a separation of power. So all the, we can say, executive, legislative and judiciary, they should not have all the power. All the power should not be concentrated in one hand. The power should be divided between executive, legislative and judiciary. That makes a constitution effective. That there should be a balanced institutional design. They also not need to be rigid or the flexible. They should have both the quality, rigidity and flexibility, not too rigid and not too flexible. So not they an effective constitution also does not promote the ideas of authoritarianism. Like they do not promotes that a single group or a single person should have all the powers. It also promotes check and balance, like the separation of power. If we all know, in India, executive is responsible to legislature. That it had it had to be accountable, that it has to give answers to legislature if executive is doing something. So balanced institutional design makes a constitution effective. An effective constitution also provides the framework for pursuing justice, basic justice like natural justice. Natural justice, I've already talked, that right to be heard. So natural justice is being promoted by Indian Constitution, like Article 20. Article 20 talks about the justice. That apart from that, basic justice also been promoted by Article 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So all these articles promote the basic justice in Indian Constitution. So Indian Constitution, or we can say an effective constitution, also preserves the freedom and equality. Freedom has been protected or preserved by Article 19, and equality has been preserved by Article 14. So in effect, how this is the way how an effective constitution should be framed. Now we look what is the difference between constitutionality, constitutionalism, and constitutional morality. So constitutionality means that while making the laws, we should adhere to the constitution. We should adhere to the principles or provisions and articles of a constitution, while constitutionalism means that it puts some of the limitations on the government, or we can say a limited government. The ideas of limited government are there in constitutionalism. Like if we talk about China, if we talk about China, so we don't find the ideas of constitutionalism in China, because in China we find the ideas of despotism. So wherever there is the ideas of limited government, we say that they follow the tenets or the ideas of constitutionalism. While what is the meaning of constitutional morality? So constitutional morality means being faithful to the constitutional values. Like we all know, the word is changing so fast, so something would have been missed by our framers of our constitution. So in that case, we need to follow, although something, if something has been missed, like something would have been written in our constitution explicitly, and something would have been written implicitly, that means clearly. Explicitly means clearly, and implicitly means that the tenets or principal values are there, but they are not written clearly. So in that case, the role of judiciary come into picture. So the idea of constitutional morality was even uh, evolved, or we can say brought forward by the judiciary. So in a simple term, constitutional morality means being faithful to constitutional values or constitutional essence. We should follow the essence of the constitution. Like if constitution talks about the equality, freedom, etc., then we should follow that. Like if we talk about the section 377 or right to privacy, so they all are being part of, we can say, they have been evolved because of the constitutional morality, because right to privacy has not been mentioned clearly in the constitution, but they are essence of the constitution. Even Supreme Court has come forward with a idea that is known as the doctrine of essentiality. So we'll talk about when we'll do Article 19 or Article 21. But for the sake of this topic here, you just need to differentiate these three terms. Let me revise it. So constitutionality means adhering to the articles of the constitution, that you should make the laws on the basis of the constitution. Constitutionalism means the government, there are some limits on the government by the that has been put by the constitution, and constitutionalism is opposed to the despotism or totalitarianism or dictatorship. While constitutional morality means being faithful to the constitutional values or the essence of constitution should be followed. So that's all for today. In the next class, we'll talk about how our constitution was framed, or how it came into being. Thank you.